Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the Ummah Builders podcast. I'm your host, Mustafa Dustin Khan. It's a blessing to be here and to launch this podcast. We've been thinking about doing this for years. As many of you know, we've had tons of conversations with people on the internet and in person, and now it's time to, have a place where we can feature all of these different things. This is really an opportunity to have deep conversations about what it takes to build community, what it takes to build institutions, and we hope to feature people from educators to startup founders, just to thinkers, to people doing the work around the world, and really it's an honor to have this first conversation be with Shaykha Tamara Gray, who visited us here in Seattle a few weeks ago, and we were just blessed with her presence. When you're in the presence of really special people, it's transformative. It can be transformative for an entire community. It can be transformative for a family. It can be transformative for individuals, and that's why we seek them out. That's why they are so special. And so we had this small conversation talking about education, really talking about what it takes to build Islamic schooling with Tarbiya and Baraka, right? And Tarbiya is this idea of the deep educational work and the transformation of souls. And Sheikha Tamara is someone who's been doing this work for decades. She just had this incredible series talking about her 40th Shahada anniversary, mashallah, and talking about all the things, the projects that she's been involved. And most people know her for her work focused on building Islamic women's scholarship around the world with Rabata, and inshallah, we're going to be launching this idea of Dads for Rabata soon, where people like myself who support that work with Rabata and support our daughters in that institution want to support the work more, because right now Rabata's funders are about 96% women. So can we at least get it to 80-20? Come on, brothers, we gotta do this together. And so it's really an honor and a blessing to have her with us, right, as we launch this podcast. And you'll see, this is a very deep conversation. Unfortunately, we had some camera issues, and this recording is not done well. It's not, in HD quality, but we thank the people who recorded it at Cordoba Academy here in Linwood, Washington. Cordoba Academy has been one of our partners as we launch our own work around the School of the Ummah, where we're building towards launching three separate things. One is youth education programs, youth leadership programs, where we do deep experiential learning with young people. Two, where we're inshallah launching daycares, a set of daycares that we're calling the Little Ummah. And with Little Ummah daycares, it's really about doing the deep work of transforming Islamic learning from the earliest ages of 3 to 5 years old, and doing immersion Arabic with immersion Spanish to build adab together and build a deep community for the future of Islam in the Americas, inshallah. And then the third is this idea of an online global Islamic high school that inshallah will be launching in the fall of 2025. So this podcast is sponsored by the School of the Ummah and Cordoba Academy. Thank you again for hosting us at your beautiful campus in Linwood, where you can feel the Baraka and you can feel the reality of the children reciting the word Al-Latif every morning with our beloved Abdul Qadir Sheikh, also known as Imam Bazi, the principal there at Cordoba Academy. So without further ado, here's Sheikha Tamara Gray. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum, our beloved Shaykha Tamara. Thank you for joining us today. We'll read a brief bio for everyone who doesn't know the Shaykha. It's an honor to have you here at Cordoba Academy. My name is Mustafa Dustin Khan. For those who don't know me, I'm the founder of the Center for Global Muslim Life, and now we starting to found our own school called the School of the Ummah. I also work here with Cordoba Academy on some business development components and thinking about the future of the school and how it relates to our own work. It's really an honor to be with Shaykha Tamara. Tamara is a globally renowned Islamic scholar and one of the world's leading, I would say, Islamic educators. She has contributed to the development of Islamic schools in Syria and Kuwait, I believe maybe more.
Qatar.
And Qatar, mashallah, and is the founder of Rabata, one of the largest platforms for women's Islamic scholarship worldwide. Dr. Tamara Gray is the founder of Baraka, an organization dedicated to promoting positive cultural change through creative educational experiences. She holds a doctorate in leadership from the University of St. Thomas, a master's degree in curriculum theory and instruction from Temple University, and spent 20 years studying traditional and classic Islamic sciences, Quran and Arabic in Damascus, Syria. Dr. Gray worked in the field of education for 25 years before moving into the nonprofit world. She is now both the executive director of Rabata and its chief spirituality officer.
Best name ever.
MashaAllah. So let's start there. So because we wanted to start this conversation really thinking about this school, Cordoba Academy, is really rooted in this idea of Tarbiya for children. So being the chief spirituality officer, you may have had many throughout your experiences in schools. Many Islamic schools, unfortunately, are cutting and pasting from public schools, and they don't have. They may have
cutting and pasting very well,
and they may have Quran and a few other things, but they aren't really doing spirituality. They aren't really doing the deep work of transforming these children's lives. So talk about your role as a chief spirituality officer and your advice for schools as we think about this idea of Tarbiya in Islamic schools.
Okay, well, I have to say, I wish I could say I made that up because it's the best name ever, but I didn't make it up. I saw it on Instagram.
MashaAllah.
Like literally, there was some big business, and there was a guy that was his job. I don't know how he does that job, but I said we need that job in all of our institutions. So I gave it to myself. In Rabata itself, I'm going to answer that very briefly. Then I want to talk about schooling. In Rabata itself, I consider the culture within and without part of that job. So if you work, we have how many employees? 30 regular employees plus another extra 100 when we're doing teaching, and about 300 volunteers. So the part of my responsibility as chief spirituality officer in that way of thinking is to ensure a positive, healthy, Islamic, spiritual, Tarbiya culture for the women who are working and volunteering for Rabatan. Because then they'll be able to do what we're trying to do everywhere else. In schooling, then, when you think about curriculum, we can't think about it as you said, a cut and paste, where we're bringing. I mean, I remember overseas, I would ask teachers, or teachers would talk to each other, "What are you teaching today?" And they would say, "Oh, page 52 of whatever book," and my brain would like burst out of its seams, because we don't teach a page. We're not page teachers, and in the same way, we're not subject teachers by itself. We're teachers of a way of thinking and a way of being. And so we want to create curriculum and methodologies and objectives and goals and all of that so that it's connected to that wider, we'll use business terms, strategic visions, where everyone has bought into that. So I think in a school, you talked a lot about Tarbiya and the beautiful adhkar you have in the morning, for example. That's a great methodology to reach the Tarbiya of the school. And then the missing piece, it's not missing, I just haven't heard it yet because I literally had a 5-minute tour. But the other piece of the puzzle is, what are the teachers doing to fill themselves so that they can be giving to the students in that space? And how is the school helping to make sure that they do that? Yeah.
That's powerful. So let's go back then to you. Shaykha Tamara has had this really amazing series on her Instagram recently, where you started with, you just had your 40th Shahada-versary.
Yes, I did.
MashaAllah, which is incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now you have a series. What's the new series on?
So when I was doing I did 40 days a year every day. That was extremely both difficult. Like I would send my husband a message. What was I doing in 2004? How do you remember that? He always knows. Yeah, like he'd send me a picture, things I was doing. So on one hand, it was a spiritual process of like even that thought, like if you think about going over the last 40 years of your life in 40 days, it was really a personal a personal spiritual benefit to me. But then during that time, somebody asked me, like, what are 40 lessons that you've learned over these years? So we wrote them down, and that was like it's a gift. I wrote it out. It's a little card. We printed it out. I think I have one. No, I don't. I thought I brought it with me because I have to do. Oh yeah, see, we printed it out. Mine is a little bit bent. And so we're doing some fundraising dinners around town, around the country. So it's part of the gift we give to the people who attend. Well, then people got really confused about some of them. They didn't understand them, especially the one that says, don't be a cooked spaghetti noodle. That's so clear to me. But like people were really like arguing about it, giving it really weird explanations. So I said, I better explain these. So I started now doing it's 40 days. I started on when we were 40 days before Ramadan. So we're doing one a day. Just different things I've learned either from life experience or things. They're always connected to life experience and something I've learned in a lesson somewhere.
And within that, within many of those years in the Shahadaversary series, you talk about the different schools you were working with and things like that. So I want you to talk about your journey as an educator. But one of the questions I like to think about when I'm talking to teachers is what was that spark for you to become an educator? Maybe that even before the Shahada.
Well, actually, if I'm really honest about it, I went to undergraduate to become the president of the United States.
MashaAllah. We still need you.
And I became Muslim in January, right after my freshman fall semester. So I was like, I don't think I can get elected now. Like literally, I've always been a very strategic thinker. And so I was really thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? What is going to benefit the Ummah the most? What can I do that will benefit the Ummah the most? And my, at the time, she was a teacher, mentor, person to me. Someone actually I had just recently met, I was talking to. And she started talking about teaching and how teaching benefits. What she said to me that was very powerful for me was when you're teaching in a classroom, you have those students. But each of those, let's say 20 students, will grow up and have their families. So let's say a family of 5. So now you've affected 100 people for each class. And you're not even counting their friends and their other family members and all of this. And you do that every single year. So you continue, your impact on the Muslim Ummah becomes exponentially greater. And so that's why I switched into education. I didn't actually switch. I switched I was doing political science. I did a focus in educational policy and I added education.
And then your journey as an educator, can you tell us about where it's really amazing, the history in Syria and all of this.
Yeah, well, I started out, of course, I was in the United States. And so I started out teaching. I did a little bit of my early training in public schools in Minnesota, and then we moved. So I didn't ever teach in Minnesota. We moved to Philadelphia. There I went and got my master's in curriculum theory and instruction, and I had a really good professor. Allah, really, like, subhanAllah, the people that Allah has put in my path have always been there to prepare me for the work that's coming. And so I really learned what I learned about curriculum there. I still benefit from today when I'm building programs. It was really something else. She was from what did she say about herself? From the boroughs of New York City. I don't know what that means. I don't know where that is. And she graduated Cornell at 16 years old. She was a genius. Anyway, then when I went to Syria, I started teaching and working there right away. If you're talking about my journey as an educator, I started out really, the first place I started working was in an institution for women who had not been able to finish high school because of life situations, whatever it was in Syria at the time. At that time, this was however many years ago now, almost, it's 35, a little more. Women who got married when they were in high school could no longer go to high school. And it was common for women to get married in high school. So then they lost out on their degree or they had to do it independently. And that most young girls struggled with that. So this was an institution set up to help these young girls finish high school so they could continue and go to college. So that's where I started. And that was that experience on its own. Like I made pennies, but there was Baraka in that money because of it was just it was a great experience. And then I went to work at an elementary school where there were 80 children in the class, second grade. So your 10 is, yani, mashallah. I called it mass teaching, and I was forced upon the principal because I had this background, and the owner wanted me. She's like, there's more to this story, but I don't want to waste time in all those details. So anyway, I was forced upon the principal. Okay, and so she really, I believe, to make me fail. You know, people are people. She put me in that class of 88. There were 88 actually, 88 second graders. And I had come in with all of my highfalutin ideas. Children have to use scissors, and children have to write on their own. Children have to talk. I was teaching English. They have to be able to talk so they can learn language and this and that. So, okay, go and do this in the class of 88 students, challenge accepted. So I love a challenge. In fact, if I'm not challenged enough, I'm kind of bored. So I spent that first year proving that we could get a class of 88 second graders to learn English and use the scissors. I bought 88 scissors and passed them out. I was in so much trouble. But it was great. And those challenges, like I do love a challenge. So I started with those second graders. Then I became the English supervisors. Then I started training teachers and also teaching. I always had a class to teach all throughout my years in Syria because I love teaching. Like I used to say to the owners in the last school I worked at, which was a 3,000 student bilingual school, first attempt in Syria to do bilingual work. And I heard you're trying to do Arabic. Bilingual work can be done. You have to be really seriously, you have to be believers in it, because otherwise it doesn't work. I've rarely seen it done well, but it can be done well. Anyway, so that was a 3,000 student school, and I forgot I was going to tell you about that school. Oh yeah, so and I had a lot of responsibility because I was the academic director there. But I would always schedule a class that was my class, like I was the teacher, and the owners were like, "Why are you doing this? Like, I have to have a reason to come to school in the morning." It wasn't enough the other administrative work. So my journey of education, I love teaching. I love teaching. I love it as myself. I love to teach. I have a flip side of that, which I find schooling a scary thing to do. I'll help you all, because children they carry with them what they learn in schools. And so if it's an Islamic school and they have a bad experience, they may connect that to their deen. And it's just such a scary thing. And we have history of Catholic schools in America proving that can be a dangerous thing if one isn't careful. So, I mean, that's the other side of that it's it is important to be very hands-on and serious and thoughtful about every step that we take in it.
So related to that, then there's this broad crisis of education, especially for Muslims in this country, right? I would say, and the way I think about it, I start at the very beginning. We actually have an early childhood education crisis amongst the Muslims where, for the most part, we're not even thinking about it. Like the early stages, right? Like 3 to 5 years old, preschools. Well, there's not really Muslim daycares, right? So this is one of the things we're thinking about is having a Muslim daycare and building that, right? And as a place where we can send our children, because we're just sending our children wherever. And I know within the movements that you're a part of, this idea of daycares was really important.
Oh yeah. Well, and it was never called a daycare. It was school. It was called school. And it's been, and this is
starting at what age?
3. Right? Yeah. 3 years old. And I mean, I can't tell you, this was the movement part of it. I mean, if you want to talk movement level. So in the 1970s, the first school was opened by my teacher, and it was for 3 to 5 years old. And subhanAllah, part of this was just because that's all the government would give as a licensing, not wanting to have anything outside of that government control. And so, and even there, the government was there. There was a second principal. Like these schools operated under great pressure, which we can speak about now. We couldn't speak about that before. And that great pressure, it's just a miracle what they're able to do. But I want you to know what they're able to do, because that ability to believe in what we can do is something I haven't seen anywhere else. So these schools open for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and a lot of the parents who sent their children, it was a little bit of a classy thing because it was private. There wasn't anything like that in the 70s, so it wasn't very expensive, but it was something new, So families would send their children. They're not necessarily religious families. In fact, plenty of people weren't even praying at home. And these little 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they were learning the dua of wudu, and they were learning how to keep themselves clean in the bathroom and all of this stuff. They were learning Quran, and they would come home and bring that home. And from that, parents started to pray. because you can't refuse a 4-year-old. Like, they're so darn cute. Yeah, I mean, when they say, "Mommy, why aren't you making wudu with me?" I mean, you're gonna be like, "Oh, right now, here I come." Yeah. So, I mean, that was part of that. And then the Quran that they learned, they 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 built a busing system to go back and forth. And on that bus, there was a teacher on the bus. She's called the bus teacher. I mean, she had other responsibilities, but she was the bus teacher.
That's great.
And so she, in order to prevent, you know how buses can be the most harmful place of schools.
Buses.
Yeah, because that's where the children are mixing. There's no supervision. A lot of bullying happens there. A lot of haram in the public world happens on the bus, or even just illegal stuff happens on the bus. So to prevent unhealthy interactions, this teacher's there. Well, then you got to keep the kids busy. So they started memorizing Quran on the bus. And the children, the last time I visited, the principal of that school says, after how many years they're still doing this. Do you remember how much they had memorized in that? You were with me.
Yes, but all students memorize
Yeah, all students memorize. Just I'm on the bus.
On the bus.
On the like, imagine, you know. And the thing about that age of a child is that, khalas, honey, you don't have to teach them. I think it's a mistake in just Ummah to try to teach them too much about the meanings. There's a lot of punishment and hellfire, but if they have it in their brain, khalas, then they learn it when they get older, and it can be a solid place for them. So that was very effective. I mean, really taking advantage of, you know, creative educational experiences, taking advantage of every moment that the child was with them or is with them. And then the classes were very large because that's how it was. And even so, there would be a teacher and a helper, and just the way they move from one thing to another, it's all about methodology. So then the students were, I mean, with the 88 children, I brought in weird stuff. They didn't have like painting and scissors and things like that, but because of the systems they had learned with everything else, they all took the scissors, they all learned how to cut, they all, you know, we did painting, that was later, but all of that stuff, so they were able to do it. So there's also like, I really believe in this thing of what you believe you can do with Allah's help, you'll be able to do. Children are brilliant. They did complicated plays and complicated dances constantly. Through that, the children learned an anashid, they learned how to speak in public because they memorized lines, and they were complicated. I mean, they did a whole show about a beehive, and can you imagine? And there were like 100 children on that stage, each one knowing what they're doing, and it's mind blowing, and really, yeah, amazing. Yeah. And Saragat's aunt is the principal, and still she's in her 80s now. She was a principal of that school that opened in the 70s, and our teacher sent her to Lebanon to learn how to be a principal, to go to a university there, learn how to be a principal, so she could come back and run the school effectively. So it's a lot about leadership, alhamdulillah, and leadership, it really does, I believe, really trickles down. I've been to maybe 400 schools in my life. I used to do teacher training, administrative training. Like, I did that when I lived in Syria. And I saw all these schools, and the school is as the principal is, not to put the pressure on anymore, but here it comes. But really, and probably the best school I ever went to was a school in Homs, in the city of Homs, which was destroyed during the war, but they reopened now. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to go deeper on this language piece and what the children can do at that age, right? Because like our daughter, alhamdulillah, she speaks Spanish to my wife at home, but she wasn't speaking as much Spanish as the older girls, right? Because I'm speaking English to her, right? And so we sent her to an immersion daycare, and then we moved, and unfortunately the Spanish language schools are so full that we couldn't get her into another one. Okay. So we sent her to a regular daycare, and she comes home and says, "Daddy, they're not speaking Spanish." What? This, like, she's like, "This is boring." Right? She's like, "This is boring. They're not teaching me enough."
Yeah.
And so it's really because to me, especially in Muslim families where we have so many children, the older kids are teaching the younger kids many of the things that some elementaries are designed to teach, right? In some ways, right? But the idea of language immersion, I just don't get, like, if you look at a map of all the immersion schools here, there's probably 40 Mandarin schools, probably 100 Spanish schools, like in the area. probably 15 French schools, but yet we've never focused
On Arabic.
on Arabic. Well, there's a new school that's a public school on the
charter.
east side here,
Mm.
right? And Qatar Foundation is doing some funding where they're help sprinkling in some
Foundation's very interested in Arabic.
some Arabic schools, right? But why do you think this is, and how important do you think that is for our children?
Oh, it's I mean, Arabic there's intentional separating from Arabic. I'm going to tell you two quick stories. When I went to a really bougie, fancy conference in September for nonprofits. It was called the Nonprofit Optimization Innovation and Optimization Conference. And I went there because we're about to launch this university, so I felt like I needed to really learn new skills. I did AI stuff and all this. And the people that were there these are the serious nonprofits, okay? They're really serious, big nonprofits. We were the only Muslims there. And we sat at a lunch table, and at this, they tell you where to sit so that you network and all of that. And there was a man there, a white 60-year-old man probably, who looked at me and started speaking to me in perfect Fusha. And I was like, okay. I was so confused at first, and I responded. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm American. I lived in Damascus. We talked to each other a little bit in Arabic. And then I feel uncomfortable speaking to people in a language that other people don't understand. So I switched, and I asked him, where did you learn? Whatever he said. Anyway, what was your organization? It turns out that he runs a very well-funded Christian missionary organization that does their work in Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan. And that's why his Arabic was good, because he had learned it. And they go under the cover of businesses. So they go in as businesses, and then they hire people and whatever. So his Arabic was perfect, better than most Muslims that I meet. Muslims whine about, I can't learn Arabic, it's so hard. And then the other thing that happened to me in 2013, 2013, I was hired by a company, an American company that had been hired by the United Arab Emirates to set up the Common Core standards for the United Arab Emirates. So they wanted the K-12 standard system like we have in America, okay? And I was hired for the Islamic studies portion. And I wasn't the only one. There were some other people that were with us, but the group came, we met each other in Qatar. And so we were on a bus going somewhere, sitting next to another white 60-something woman. And I asked her, oh, what do you do? I thought she did ASL or something. She said, oh, I'm here to do the Arabic. And I was like, wow. Again, that wasn't again. That was actually the first thing, not this. But anyway, I said, wow. And I said, oh, when did you learn Arabic? And she said, oh, I don't know Arabic. But I said, well, oh, don't you think that might, be a little difficult to put the core standards of the whole country if you don't speak Arabic? I didn't say it like that. And she said, oh, no, I've done it a lot in English. And I have a friend who speaks Arabic. He emailed me. That's a real story. Like, that happened, if you can imagine. So there's real, like, there are both real issues about us as a community having Arabic stripped away from us, as well as real lack of motivation issues in our community to understand the importance of it. And we work with a professor at Oxford. Her name is Anna Maria Rafsanzadeh, doctor. And her specialty is in teaching Arabic as a second language. And her entire dissertation was about building motivation to learn Arabic language. And I mean, there are things you can do at every educational level to help move students along, but we have to be very intentional about it. For bilingual education, the way that it worked in the little village school where I worked, where it worked really well. I mean, we had students in grade 11 doing the first language English exam. It was the opposite bilingual, right? So they have Arabic at home. They did in grade 11 first language English exam through Cambridge, the IGCSE. And then they did the Syrian baccalaureate in grade 12, which is the most difficult Arabic language baccalaureate that there is. And so how did we do that? So we did immersion in, like, they only took English up to kindergarten. And then grade 1, they started with half-half. They did Arabic and English. And I saw that method work really, really well. So that's what I would suggest here, that you would do 3, 4, 5, 100% Arabic learning, absolute immersion. And then grade 1, they would go to a bilingual system to hold on to that Arabic. The bilingual system, there are classes that they take in Arabic and classes that they take in English, and you have to measure out those hours and just see. I mean, it would take some planning, but it could certainly happen.
Well, mashallah. And so, and related to this, I wanted to get to a point you were making at the WhatsApp program last night that I think is really powerful, is that so much of this, I think, has to do with the intentions of what parents want oftentimes within Islamic schools, that we have the intention that we're in this country and here for our children to be doctors and lawyers and engineers. And it maybe even though they're at an Islamic school, for the adab component and for the identity component, it doesn't really have to do with them becoming Islamic scholars or like knowing the religion in a deep way. And I think there was a word you used in Arabic, and I forget what you said, but you talked. Do you remember, Sheikh, where you were talking about our intentions in being here, and that throughout history, the Muslims came into a place and they came in strong.
Yeah.
And can you make, because I think that's part of it here, is that we're part of the reason why Islamic schools haven't been bilingual is assimilative factors. There's factors related to Islamophobia and racism, of course. And so we know that that's real, but we know for our children to actually take the baton and move it in the ways that Malcolm was moving it, in the ways that Warthi Muhammad was moving it, right? Not in incremental ways, but in powerful ways.
So I have three things to say about that. First of all, I just want to say, you mentioned Warthi Muhammad and Malcolm X. So the Sister Claire Muhammad schools are a really good example of schools that did it right. I mean, they did an excellent job. They had non-Muslim students begging to come to their schools because they were educating their children in I'll call them spiritual things that were in many different categories, including a lot of Black pride, including reading Black authors, including being educated in the history of Black Americans as well as Africa. And there's just a lot that they did that grew their young people to be very confident. And so they had a lot of non-Muslims who wanted to come to their school. I'm not saying that's for every single Sister Claire Muhammad school. I'm sure that there were individual experiences, but in general, and Dr. Jamila Karim talks a lot about that and her experience at her Sister Claire Muhammad school. So I think that's a really good example of what we should be doing when we're building schools. Understand what they did right, and then do that in the way that makes sense for us wherever we are. The second thing is, you mentioned what I talked about last night. So what I said last night is that when you look around and we look at our history and how did Muslims go out into Malaysia, into Indonesia, into the different spaces in Africa, especially West and Southern West, I guess we'll call it, and then also East, is that Muslims came and they moved in. They moved in with all of the confidence of who they were, not looking at the people as, are they gonna like me? Am I gonna fit in? Am I gonna be okay here? But like, you're so lucky I'm here. And then they would integrate into the community in 1,000 different levels and 1,000 different ways. But mostly they would bring forth this concept of ma'ruf and munkar. So what is our mandate? We can call it that as a Muslims, to wherever we go, to enjoin ma'ruf, what is good and khair and goodness, to enjoin it, to make it happen, to uplift it. When we see it, it's already there, uplift it and bring it forth when it isn't. And the opposite of that, to push back against munkar, which is all the ugly things, all things we all agree are ugly. The reality is, the beauty of those two words is, for the most part, except for when you have what we have now in society, which is like a confusion, a very deep, an external confusion. I don't believe people are truly confused on the inside, but an external confusion. Then all of a sudden the ma'ruf is munkar and munkar is ma'ruf. But in general, people on the inside, we all agree. Like, there's things we all agree on that are ma'ruf and munkar. And as Muslims, we should be excitedly bringing these forth. And people should look at us and be like, oh my God, alhamdulillah, they're not going to say that, but the non-Muslims should be like, oh my God, I'm so glad I had some Muslims move into my neighborhood last week. I know it's going to be a better neighborhood now. That's how they should be thinking. and because of the people we usually are, very generous, more generous than any other community, highly educated as well. In general, Muslims in America are of the most highly educated community. There are some caveats to that, but we'll just speak in general. And we should be having that influence. So why aren't we? There are many layers, but one of them is this: that we're not coming. We have changed history. Maybe we have colonial daddy issues. I don't know. So when we're leaving our countries, we're like, oh, we're with our stepdad or something now. I don't know. Like, and we're trying to please this stepdad and get this fake daddy issue thing going on. Whatever it is, we need to get over it quickly and really focus. And you said something about Islamic schools. One of the issues with Islamic schools today, in my view, is that a lot of them have been set up to protect, not to grow. And that is a scarcity mindset that becomes the DNA of the school. And so, alhamdulillah, if there's some protection, in general, there isn't always as much as they hope for. And also, if you just want to protect, it's like if you set a strategic vision in business or nonprofit or in schooling, and your strategic vision is little, it's gonna stunt you. The vision will stunt you. And the vision of I want to protect is a stunting vision, because there are plenty. How many stories have you heard? I've heard way too many of how Islamic schools were not able to protect the children from internal haram, internal harm, internal all sorts of things. That if we set the vision for we want to raise those children who are going out into the community to uplift it, because that's the mandate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. We want to raise them to carry forth this flag and this confidence of who they are. Then the quote unquote failed piece would be someone who isn't quite ready to do that, rather than this really low bar. And so that's the thing. Like when we have a school that just wants to protect, that's why it's cut and paste. They're bringing curriculum because, we just want to protect. We just want to keep out that which we disagree with. But they don't understand how much they're bringing in of what they disagree with, because they didn't have the vision in the beginning to build what needed to be there. That's a whole bunch of circular talk, but I think you follow me.
No, in the great classic West African piece of literature, Ambiguous Adventure, Sheikh Ahmed Rukain, he writes of cannons and cannons. Yeah. That it's not the story is about the first generation of young boys and girls going from the Quran school to the French school. And he writes that it's not the first canon, because it's the second canon, the canon of westernization, that bewitches the soul. And this is what we don't get, right? And then to your point, our intention here as the most powerful community in the Americas, and the Americas being the last place of dawah on the globe, should be to transform the entire Americas.
Yeah, exactly.
With Islam.
Yeah.
And that's why they hate us. We have to be very clear that this is why they hate us. They hate us because our transformative power. This is why they're at war with us, right? And you have a very, very powerful sister, Hazel Gomez, as your board president of Rabata, as an example of a young Latina doing this work and doing the dawah. Right?
Yeah.
So mashallah. So I don't want to take up all the time, and I want to open it up, but I want to get to Rabata, because I think that there is this general crisis, like I said, of education that goes from earlyhood childhood education all the way to the university. And of course, the universities are literally attacking our children. Yeah. And
and sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
I just get all up in my feelings about that. So we have there's a real, if you step back for a minute and look, I want you to just observe. I don't know what it's like here in Seattle or in Washington, but in Minnesota, which is a liberal, a blue state, it's not like the South. There's not a huge evangelical Christian community there. They're out in the small towns more so, but not really in the Twin Cities. Where we're located, there are 2 Christian colleges. And I started noticing their expansion was ridiculous. I was, what is going on? They're buying property. I was really very quietly buying property. So I became interested in this. This is about 10 years ago when I first moved back. I became interested in this and started reading different books and different articles, looking on their websites and just trying to figure out what is going on. And from my cursory research, it seems to me that in America there's a movement happening. And this gets back to our mistake. We don't look to put out fire. Sorry, we only look to put out fires. We're never preventing those fires from starting in the first place. But at the same time that Christian seminaries are closing rampantly, like there are just not enough students. Zaytuna literally got their property because a seminary closed. They're closing just one after the other. Even Hartford Seminary, the only way they were able to stay open is by bringing in Muslims for chaplaincy. So Christian seminaries are closing. We understand there is a loss of interest in Christianity to a degree in this country. We see the evangelical movement. That's a different conversation. But what is expanding exponentially? The small Christian colleges that offer secular topics, but in a Christian environment. What is this? This is your middle class, go to church on Sunday, Christian family that wants to protect their young people from the academic left. What you just said about attacking young people. And because it is a secular, the academic left is so highly secular that anyone with any faith, it's not only Muslim, anyone with any faith is seen as suspect and will be pushed into pushing that aside to write papers in order to get the grades that they want to get. So the ability to go to a Christian school, for example, changes that. And that literally was one of the reasons that we're now starting this university, to have that space of what we can do. But absolutely, this country is, there are things happening. There are changes happening here. The knowledge economy is different. Traditionally and historically, academia moves very slowly, very slowly. I'm talking about universities and schools. Everything moves very slowly because there are financial things involved in that. The homeschooling movement has affected elementary schools, but not enough to really have a heavy effect. At the university level, I don't know. Only Allah knows how quickly or how slowly that's going to change, but it's changing. And we need to be aware and thinking about, because right now, if we stay with our attitude of, what are they doing so we can copy it? We're going to end up very much behind and not preparing our young people for the future that they need just to sustain. And that shouldn't be our vision. Our vision should be that they can impact and transform. Yeah.
So speaking of transformation, then I think Sheikh Mendez was talking a little bit last night about this story of how you came to the U.S. and you wrote about it because you had to. You had talked about it, to flee the war. And then you were looking for jobs, and maybe not, even though, mashallah, one of the most talented, highly educated sheikhs or sheikh amongst the sheikhs or sheikhas in our community nationally, getting rejections. But then that rejection led to the opening of what Rabata is now. So, and really, I think the importance of the historical movement that you're a part of, but also the work in the globally with Rabata is transforming women's scholarship globally, creating this huge online, and your PhD is in online education, correct?
Yes, my dissertation. My dissertation,
right.
On digital leadership, actually.
Right. Okay. So talk then about this vision, how you've grown it, and kind of where you're going with this idea of the university. I know that's a lot, but I
can squish it down. Yeah. So first of all, that job thing is so funny that so I moved here. I'm here I think I'm only going to be here for 5 months, and I'm still in the 5 months. And so I think I'm going back, and then I quickly realized that's not true. I need to find a job, because I did have savings, alhamdulillah, but I mean, not a lot. My husband also hadn't found a job, and all of that. It's the difficulty of leaving when you're not ready to leave. So it was very difficult. I didn't know how to even apply for things. I mean, the whole internet world in 2012 to me was really new. I knew how to do email, but even that, I wasn't adept at it. So I applied at our local Islamic school to teach. Now, the thing is, I give a lot of grace to people. They didn't know me for Joe, who is she? The principal was my friend. And she was like, how do I know you're not just going to leave when the war stops in Syria? And I was like, I also couldn't give her no, I will for sure stay. So, she didn't hire me. She did let me come in as a substitute for a short period of time. I am grateful, because had I been hired at a school, that would have been my life. I make things my life. I mean, that would have been everything I'm doing. And then I tried to work in masajid, and they were like, no. So, like, I can't believe things I tried to do. And all of that was to put me in this position where in September of 2012, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I had cleaned my house, mashallah, many times. And I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I just can't. What am I going to do with my life? And I had gone on this tour in July and August. It was Ramadan. And I had visited 69 cities and given 69 talks. I came here. This is one of the places I came to. And I talked to all these women, talked to Muslim women, and I was really surprised to see that the sort of situation that women were in after being away for 20 years was not that different than when I had left. Muslim women I'm talking about. So that experience was part of the inspiration, and also I didn't have anything else to do because I hadn't found a job. So that's how we started with our first online course, and for me that was a very new idea. But we had 180 women sign up. And so I was like, oh, people are interested in this. And then I found myself able to connect with the women online. And that was a really important thing to me, because Tarbiya is about connection. It's not just about giving ilm. So I felt I could only give ilm. That's nice. That's good. It's important, but it wouldn't have been enough for me. And one of the ways I felt I was able to connect is because I really was thinking about this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. You all know it. I want to speak about it as the image it creates, okay? Which is this image where people are sitting in a circle and they're learning, and the angels come, you know it now, right? And but I want you to see the image. The angels surround them and they make istighfar for them and make dua for them. So I had this image, and then it occurred to me that the world, space and time belong to Allah. So my traditional education, of course, like you guys mentioned, is in this space and that connection with the teacher. But I realized that if space belongs to Allah, then the internet space belongs to Allah as well. And so the image was replaced in my mind. We had women from all over the world. So I started asking them, where are you coming in from? Then I would visualize the world, and that we're sitting in this circle in the world, and that the angels are surrounding us. And I was in a lot of grief for Syria at that time. And so I imagined that for that moment that we were in class, that the angel presence had brought some measure of peace to the people who were enclosed in our circle by just being in the world. That image, that hadith transferred into this image in my mind, was why digital learning became something I could do, even though I didn't have that experience at all. And it became something where this is not only something I can do, but it's something that can transform people's lives. The in-person piece is very important. And we have, for example, to get a teacher certification, you have to come to our in-person, what we call immersive class or retreat, depends on whatever. Because that is part, but that one moment of being together, the digital space is still part of that building of that community and that friendship and that connection. So when we started with our Ribat online classes, the first was that pilot class, and then by the next year, 2013, we had 8 classes online. Last year we had 2024, 2,000 students, over 90 countries, alhamdulillah. We offer a teacher certification, a scholar certification. And what those are, teacher certification, the original idea is that teachers who teach Islamic schools are oftentimes not, weekend schools here or full-time, but we were especially thinking about those weekend schools, or even homeschool moms, where they are in a position to teach Islam. They don't have any teacher training at all. And sometimes they don't have real education in Islam either. They're doing their research, but they haven't really had background. So we created a teacher certification, 2 levels, where teachers walk through the classes and then they do a graduation. We also have a scholar certification, which is much more time consuming because I believe in time with a scholar certification. It's not about what you know, it's about how you've changed and grown. So we still have those heavy ijazas and all of this as well. And the morphing or the next step that makes sense to me is this idea of university. It's a college, but because we're global, I say Ribat University because in England, the college is a high school. So it is a 4-year bachelor's degree. Inshallah, with the word university, one day we'll have masters and PhDs, but for now it's a 4-year bachelor's program. And my point here is that people can come and study organizational leadership and development within like a Christian college. I mean, within Islamic epistemology and spirituality. So they're learning that secular subject in an accredited, affordable university, and then they can bring that forth back into the community. That's the purpose of it. That's a very short, I jumped you from 2012 to now. Alhamdulillah, now Syria is free, so alhamdulillah.
Well, and then talk about the K through 12 curriculum components that you're working on. I know we printed some.
Yeah, so this is what we offer right now, and so I thought it would be good for you to know that, so you can tell us at some point along the way. So our vision, we don't have a school for K-12. We have some programming. We have some programs, Dragonflies and Rebel Teens. We consider these supplemental to whatever children are doing in their community. So Dragonflies is a 6 to 12-year-old boys and girls program. We focus on ethics and heart work for 6 to 12-year-olds. And like I said, we consider it as supplemental. And then our Rebel Teens are just short little we call them mini masters. And we do like stuff that Rebel Teens are interested in. Those are just girls. But our focus and our vision of what we want to do as an organization is like what I'm here doing with you today, is support the schools that are doing the work, support the teachers that are in the classroom, create educational materials. And that's inshallah in a couple of years. We have some now, but like really be that place of support. And so we are hoping to create what schools need. We're actually in the market for a K-12 lead right now so that we can fulfill that vision. We don't have someone in that position right now. So if you look at what we have though, that's available already at Ribat, which is our online academic program, we have a Ribat teacher certification. And that's what I already explained to you. We do work with schools who want to bring all of their teachers to do that. And we could also do a shorter thing. We have a methodologies class, and we also have, like, depending what the teachers in the school wanted to do. We do professional development through Ribat Academic Institute, different types of professional development. We do incubation. We've done incubation programs. And what that means is that people want to start nonprofits, but the skills are easily transferable to schools that are working to be like sustainable and independent. And then we have standalone courses, like it says here, and Mentorship Matters is one of the classes that teaches us how to work with people. And the youth programs I mentioned, we have Durable Teens and Dragonflies. Those are what we're doing directly. We see those more as outreach to the women who are taking our other classes. That's not our focus. Those are not our focus programs. We love them, but we love them as how to support the women in our programs. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then Daybreak Press. So at Daybreak Press, that's our publishing arm. We do have 4 books. 3 are novels, and 1 is a nonfiction, creative nonfiction, I guess. Sorry, this is missing 1, but so it's missing 1. You can write it in. A Drummer Girl is a children's book. If you don't have it here, I mean, it's a children's book about a little girl whose father helps her. One of the stereotypes in the world is that Muslim fathers are, bad and abusive and all of this stuff. So in this book, this little girl wants to be the one who drums to wake people up for suhoor in countries where they do that. And her father's like super encouraging. It's actually based on a true story. And then we have 3 novels. Pieces, which is here, and that is a novel about mental health and challenges of mental health in the family. That's a really good book. I actually really like this book. And we do have a teacher's guide that goes with all of these. So that's the teacher. This would be like a classroom novel that everybody could read, probably fifth to sixth grade, because it does deal with PTSD, the father and how the family is managing that. This book, the family happens to be Muslim. The focus is not on them being Muslim, but it would be a good. I wanted this book to be in public schools, and it is in some public schools, alhamdulillah. Sophia's Journal is a book about American history, where a girl does a time travel thing, and that also has a teacher's guide. We also have the one that isn't here called An Acquaintance, probably too old for your school here, but just it's more for high school age. It's about a young girl who is goody two shoes, does everything right, lives in small town America. She's, the list of what it is to do things right, she does, and then Jason shows up. And of course, because because we're Rabata, it's not your typical ending. So it's a good ending, and it's a good struggle that she goes through to think about. When I say it's a good ending, I mean it's a dini ending. But it's about the struggle. Like, it's about her thinking process and her family, and how she loses her friend, and how she almost loses her family, and like the stuff that is real, that really can happen. And it's a really great discussion points, not probably for 6 and under, but still, that's probably why it's not here. My Prophet Myself is brand new. Look for it right before Ramadan. It should be coming out. This is a 9 to 11-year-old book, and it is really adorable essays about the Prophet's examples in the Prophet's life and in the seerah of the Prophet of courage, of trustworthiness, of ethics, of different ethics and values, with the ability for kids to think about that together. So these are some of the things we're trying to do. Our K-12 teacher aids that you might like to download, these are all free off on our website. Leadership and Legacy are built units. They're units are around Muslim women in history, and we do have what is called the lower level, and so in there you'll find materials and things like that for an elementary school. There's an upper level as well if you have very advanced students and you want to use some things that are a little bit more advanced. You could take a look at those. And then our Women's History Month stuff is more just posters, and Africa is not a country. I talked about it last night. We built 53 really fun cards and posters. You could download those to teach children about geography, and how Islam entered the country as well is there, and different kinds of things. And then we do coaching and training in the future. As soon as we hire this person, inshallah, we're planning to also offer school leadership mentorship, some group training for educational staff, and she'll also be building educational materials that schools are saying that they need. So that's what we're doing.
Amazing. So I want to open it up, but I wanted to say my plug, right, which is that, we love Rabata, we love the work that you're doing, and we want to encourage everyone to support your work. We know that if we are going to get our children off of university campuses where they're being beat up by police and told that they can't say the word Zionism, then we have to build our own universities.
Yeah.
Literally, that's the task that's in front of us.
And that's a new problem. Like, we have all the other problems that go with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a call with your development team, and we were strategizing, and one of the things that came from that was saying that we need men for Rabata.
Yes, we do.
And saying that the men need to support female scholarship and women's scholarship and leadership. And so however I can raise my voice for that, I'm 100% behind you all. And I would say, I was at Zaytuna for 10 years, and there on the campus and with the students. And throughout that time, and Sheikh Hamza and Imam Zaid would repeat this probably, that the best students were the women, right? But the difficulty is they graduate, and where do they go?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the men also have to do the work of helping open up those positions for the women when they're the leaders, when they're the better students in the classroom.
My vision is that every community as communities hire imams, they will also hire a female resident scholar. That will become the norm, that a community has an imam and a female resident scholar. And then that's just something that is needed in community and of course we need to provide the graduates. So we're working on that so that there's somebody to hire, because there hasn't been a lot of people to hire, but certainly Zaytuna, anybody who graduates from Zaytuna could hire for such a position.
Exactly. So yeah, any questions from the audience or reflections, ideas? Yes, Sister
So you
Farzana.
mentioned about this inferiority complex that we Muslims all have.
Yeah.
We are always trying to not, we're not as confident to show the amazing that Islam is. I'm an elementary school teacher, but what steps do you tell us to do to inject that confidence in the students? I see it when they go out of here, they're trying to assimilate.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's worth it to do some research about the Sister Claire Muhammad schools, because they were really good at what they did in raising confidence in their students. That being said, what like sort of regular educational books about raising children with confidence say is, and so we could just paint that with an Islamic brush, are things like making sure that they can see heroes that they want to be like. So that includes companions, it includes later people. Nana Isma'u is a great, then that the leadership and legacy download would be helpful for that, because all just about individuals that did really wonderful things. And then learn how to teach those stories and with that focus, so that you ask the question, do you think she felt confident? Maybe she didn't feel confident, but she acted in a confident manner because of mission. That's the second thing, is to teach children have you ever seen that book? It's a really old book, Stephen Covey's Leadership in Me, Leaders in Me, something like that. It's really old. That has some really nice things. It's worth it to grab it from a library or a used bookstore or something, to look at the kinds of questions, just to glean from there the kinds of questions we can ask children to help them see themselves as someone who can be a leader, even if they're afraid, even if they don't feel confident. But because the whole thing about being a Muslim in society and not having daddy issues or inferiority complex, colonial daddy issues, is that we begin to understand that we can have confidence or bravery. Bravery is not being afraid to do something and doing it anyway. And when we are brave and wise, because we don't want bravery with rash that's not rooted in ibadah, rooted in knowledge, but we can give children those ways to think and those steps to go through when they're, and give them practice in bravery. So I guess maybe that's the third thing. A lot of books that talk about raising children who are leaders and things like this talk about giving them experience in that. And so you might have them go somewhere where they're going to speak, or have all of the different exhibitions you might have where the children would be showing something and they have to talk about it. Every time they have to do that, that is giving them that practice that they're going to need to talk about something else. I don't think it should always be talking about Islam per se, but talking about something that they've learned that they can share. And then the school that I said is the best school I've ever been in, which is the one in Homs. The principal there kept a record of how many students that were able to speak and how they grew in the 6 years, so that by year 6, everybody graduated the ability to stand up and speak to an audience and talk about something and be able to do that. She also kept a record of their Quran memorization, for example. And in grade 6, they all memorized Surah Al-Baqarah. So every year, there was a different surah or a different section that they memorized. And so everybody left grade 6 with Baqarah. Quran gives children success. In the literature, success gives children confidence. We think through the lens of Islam, and we realize that success in memorization will give them confidence. So be careful about giving the goal of khitma to everyone, because that's not reachable for everyone right away. Give goals that the whole class will reach, so they all can get up and recite that surah, and they can all feel good about, yes, I accomplished that. If you have people doing more, that's great. That's not just great, that's normal. We're always going to have children up and down, but try to make it so that everyone is successful with Quran, especially Quran. So you want children to feel like Quran is their source of success and connection. Yeah.
You mentioned Dr. Jamila Karim. What's the name of her book? The one about literature. It's really, I'll look it up, but that book is amazing, because she talks about this idea of culturally relevant literature.
Yes.
And I think that's so much of what Islamic schools are lacking is cultural relevancy, meaning like and it doesn't have to be only Muslim stories.
No.
But really like almost an ethnic studies model of very diverse stories that are not, because so much of these curriculums have white supremacist roots, whether or not we recognize it.
Oh yeah, and just even knowing that, I mean, when we're building the college or the university, we have our my strategic assistant, Fatima Salam, who is one of the very important things she brings to us is the diversity. What is it? Diversity, inclusion,
DEI,
and
diversity, equity, inclusion.
But from an Islamic lens, right? So like really remembering that we have so many different communities that have had scholars, making sure that we're studying from different scholars, not only we want to know the famous people. We need to know who they are. I mean, they're very important, critical scholars of our history. We also need to know others who have contributed from the Indian continent, from the African continent, from Malaysia and Indonesia and places like this. So this is part of what we're doing as we're building curriculum. Yeah.
What is the relation of parents from the perspective of this hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where he said that it is the parents that actually give the identity of the children. فَأَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِهِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِهِ, compared to them attending to school expecting that the school has this amazing magical wand that can make this person, mashallah, Salahuddin Ayyubi of his time, or Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani of his time, or Imam Abu Hanifa of his time, or Sayyidah Aisha of her time. So what is the environment of the home supposed to be like in developing this amazing Islamic confident kid?
Yeah. So first of all, I just would like to recognize that a lot of our parents are afraid of that process. They don't know what to do themselves. And that fear manifests itself in unloading. So, I took care of this. I sent them to Islamic school. They themselves may be struggling, especially I have found parents in the West, they themselves are having cultural struggles, whether at work or at just amongst their friends or feeling lonely, or just they themselves are really struggling. And so they're not able to do that building that you're talking about. And ultimately, in the end, that is the hadith of the Prophet, isn't it? So as they don't have confidence, they're raising children without confidence. I mean, it's that's the same thing. So what can the role of the school be for that? I think we can do parent enrichment programs where we help parents connect. I mean, like the school I talked about in Syria, the parents had nothing to do at the beginning, and still until now, some families, nothing to do with the environment that school was trying to build. But the little 3, 4, 5-year-olds were able to bring some of that home. And then some of that parent enrichment was and is that parents are invited in groups. So too many children to do everyone at the same time, but you could do in a school like this, you could do everyone in Kuwait. I was just in Kuwait where they had something for the children. Now there's a lot of money to make this beautiful stage, but you don't need a beautiful stage. Just the kids are cute for the parents. And just to have things that teach the parents. So to enrich, I think the word enrichment. So we want to enrich the parents. We want to help them see everything we do can be that thing that just by keeping them in mind, sometimes just by keeping the parents in mind, instead of thinking of them as, why aren't they doing what they're supposed to do? But how can we support them to do what we need them to do? And really even letting them know what that is. And always remember that parents are human, and you've got financial issues, financial struggles, religious struggles, marital struggles, family struggles, and it's not, people are struggling. Our community, we're really struggling. We have multi-layers of problems and issues. And so I think the school should be a healing place, or at least a place where we're making an attempt to help the parents in that one role of seeing their child and letting the children see their parents so they can really have a good relationship. It's not easy. I'm not going to be successful with every parent, but it's not, it's complicated. I mean, that's why we work with adults. I mean, why did I start with adults? Because I didn't know how to do, like, how do I do children? How am I working with children? And the adults are floundering in a sea of doubt and struggle and yeah.
There is this alignment. Mm, the school has this amazing vision that they want to produce this amazing righteous youngsters that will be promoting the ma'ruf that we talked about, and inshallah ta'ala becoming shields of preventing the munkarat. And then this alignment takes place at home where the parents are not in alignment with vision. They're sending here their kids because they're afraid of something that's taking place in the public school that they're trying to push minor things. So for them, this whole vision of yours is not there. And even though you're creating parent enrichment programs, sometimes they are not there. They're not showing up. So when you draw that line and say, okay, so how these parents and us, we're not in line. And even though this child, mashallah, has a lot of potential, and he's innocent and has, alhamdulillah, should not be held accountable for the failures of his parents. But right now, this parent is not in line with the school vision and the mission of what the school is trying to produce. We're going to disconnect.
I don't know. That's a slippery slope for me. I mean, personally, what I would do is I would just let them be who they are. As long as they're putting their child in my school, I'm going to be who I am. I mean, I'm going to do the Latifiyya, and I'm going to do the Surat Kahf, and I'm going to do the, talking about Islam and do the confidence building and do all the stuff we're doing. And if they're not aligned, they can complain, but I'm going to smile and say, oh, I understand your concerns. Okay. But I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. If they are going to take their children out, I'm going to be sad, actually. But then I have to let them do that because they're the parents. But I wouldn't waste my energy trying to get an alignment from the parents. Basically, when a parent puts a child in the school, they are aligned with you, even if they don't act like it. And if they're not, they're going to leave. I mean, what I would do is expect alignment. And if they're not aligned, just move on. That's what I would do. Just because you have limited energy, like what can you pour the energy into the teachers and the students? And, whoever puts their kid in here, you don't know. I mean, imagine if I was the child here, you think my parents are aligned with this vision? I mean, my parents aren't even Muslim. You know what I mean? It's not and people change, and they might be going through something. And I think we need a lot of compassion for parents. I really do. It's a rough world out there, and people are going through stuff. And yeah.
A lot of your programs this weekend are focused on converts, right? And so I wanted to touch on that here also, that, because our older girls, they had a really terrible experience with like Arabic programs in San Diego, right? To the point that they were like, we're not going to Islamic schools. So alhamdulillah, we have one here, right, of the older three. And a lot of it is because of how damaging that was for them, right? And the harshness of the teaching, right? And so, but it's so important because the issue for us as converts is we don't have the Muslim family. We don't have them. So the Ummah is our family.
Right.
And there's also, I feel like, a fear sometimes within the Muslim community of converts and maybe even convert children, right? And so how can a school create belongingness for children of converts?
What an interesting question. I'm trying to think of it as what are the points of disconnect? I think the first example that you've given, which is the places where methodologies are from quote unquote back home, that sort of immigrant, that's not Muslim only, that's immigrant mentality in America. That's my grandmother was Italian, same, take the slipper to the kid kind of mentality. That methodology needs to be removed from our schools because the children are comparing. I mean, a child should never see a Muslim act in a way that is harmful or violent to them. Because ultimately, in the end, even in even in Muslim countries where that's a norm, which it is less and less a norm, I'll say, it's damaging to the child. And it's not, I think that's a convert issue as much as the converts are so shocked by it. And it becomes this painful thing where how are these people that I'm following their religion thinking that this is okay? What becomes difficult is when the administration or the friends or the other deal. Then it's just like, wait, what am I in it feels like gaslighting, and it feels like I'm in a twilight zone somewhere, where this doesn't make any sense. So I think perhaps in that space, I mean, I don't know. I'm at a space in my mind right now where I feel like if schools and space masajid are just not willing to come into this new knowledge economy, this new world for Muslims, this new place we have to be, then we just leave them and sort of let them do their thing and then move away from them. I wouldn't. I have a lot of regrets about some of the experiences my children had, even in Islamic schools and in Syria, because it was shocking to me. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't handle it like I would handle it today, yeah, and it hurt them. So it's, I would say that as a convert who lives in America and knows the laws of the land and knows what is acceptable isn't acceptable, that the convert parents should not be bullied by the other environment to say that that's okay. I don't know if that's an answer. As far as having children feel comfortable, I mean, I don't know. I just feel terrible that question has to be asked. I feel like, why is it a question?
Well, it's almost like, how do you rebuild confidence as part of it too, when the damage is there? Because the way that I framed it in my work is like, you have these Muslims, many of whom have what I would call an intergenerational tawfiq, right? Like this, Allah's assistance to their family. And not to say they don't have intergenerational trauma in their families. Also, many of them, of course, do. But many of us who are converts, we're coming from backgrounds of intergenerational trauma.
A lot of it. That's absolutely right.
Because it's the trauma and the brokenness from our families that even lead us to be open enough to seek, right? And so it is difficult for the schools to deal with, but nonetheless, we need the Ummah support to do it, right?
Yeah, I've never thought about that question, so I need to let it cook in my mind a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a question and have a comment. Because you were mentioning daycares earlier. The state of Washington in this area, actually, the vast majority of daycares are huge majority actually use owned. So much so that no South Community College now has child development in Arabic and Somali language.
Wow.
Just to meet the demand of all those Muslim daycares. So in my thought, it's like when we thought about going to those daycare owners and trying to integrate them into whether it's the WhatsApp, your school, teach, not to say that all their students or all their kids are Muslim. A lot of the time is like half. It just seems like a kind of a low-hanging fruit. Like
that's a good idea.
Interesting education or Muslim, so much so that our secular colleges are like, let's get them child development languages that make sense. And then a lot of people I know that are not Muslim who actually send their kids to Muslim daycares, they like that environment. It just seems like it's something that's kind of right for the thinking to, it's more strategic than just trying to do everything at Cordoba, everything at this Islamic school. Like, how do you kind of branch that out and provide that network or spider effect with all the daycares? I mean, there's probably come out radius. There are probably 20 daycares in Muslim homes just in the area.
Even just doing a focus group with them, a discovery sort of thing of what would you need to, how can we support you? Yeah.
Well, and that's why we've been talking about doing like a consortium even of Islamic schools in the region, because that doesn't exist, unfortunately, in most states, most big cities, where the reality is we're all under-resourced. That's the biggest problem with the Islamic schools, is how under-resourced we are, how little our teachers are being paid, all of these things. So the only way we can even do professional development actually is if we were to do regional conferences where the Islamic schools are working together to do professional development for each other, essentially, right? So it's really, like you said, the part of what I see here is the problem of nonprofits, and that many people come from corporate backgrounds in the Muslim community, and we're not thinking through a lens of building social movements. when what we need to be building is like social movements, essentially collectively and together.
Yeah.
Beyond our individualized nonprofits or individual schools.
Yeah.
So that's a really good idea we hadn't thought about the daycare level.
Like a micro way of doing it versus like just a big conference. And I think that it's a hand, right? Because these are small women-owned businesses too, right? And they're the backbone of a lot of our Muslim families. And even on Northgate where I live, I can go down the street and there's like this on daycare, this daycare, they're all Muslim names, right?
Totally. Any other questions over here? Yes.
I'm processing it. But I'm a bit of a broken record with this issue, and you did touch upon it about the curriculum. So, and my kids go to Islamic school. I've been there from the beginning. I refuse to send them to public school. However, my issue has always been and why I take a lead in PTO stuff is because I don't appreciate the fact that we use the Washington State curriculum and then take that and then try to sprinkle in the Islamic, and even that I don't even think is being sprinkled in as much as it could be. And so I even went as far as to go to IOK, California, to see a beautiful building, and they told me the same thing. They're using California State curriculum, and they have to do the same thing, and they pick and choose and all this. And I don't know if you have ideas of how can we empower and uplift our Islamic schools and the admin and the boards of the Islamic schools to be like, no, this is worthwhile. And I mean, I guess if you have even any recommendations, I know that you're working on some curriculum.
Well, I mean, curriculum is such a thorny bush because it is very expensive to develop. And the money is in those big companies. So that's where, they're selling, and even they're selling to the Middle East, because here people are selling, they buy one book and then they keep it in the school. And in the Middle East and the Arab Emirates and places like this, they buy them every year. Every year the kids take them home for, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. When you say the California curriculum or the Washington curriculum, what do you mean when you say that? Just so we're talking about the same thing.
Like whatever is the state mandate, like the books and the
You have state mandated books in Washington and in California?
Yeah, like so for example, the math curriculum would be whatever is mandated by the state. The teachers here, correct me if I'm wrong, do CBA, WABA, and all these things. So these are online.
So like Harcourt, McGraw-Hill, these kinds of companies?
Yeah, like something similar to that.
Yeah.
They have their set curriculum.
Yeah.
And so the only thing that I've seen that, and usually again, like me, the parents who get the books in the mail, and I open the books and I think about it, I'm like, why are these certain things being taught to my kindergartner, and I have to bring it to the admin board, like if you go through the books. And the teachers don't know until they open it up. And I don't. So those things, I'm like, my one suggestion has been if teachers would plan ahead, and they need the uplift from the school to add in Islamic, or not even Islamic, like literature, like again, like ethnic,
culturally relevant
books that would enrich the dialogue with the children, the critical thinking.
Yeah.
Instead of just copy pasting, because they gave us the books. We're going to follow this because we need to tick mark it off.
So I know states have different laws, so I'm not familiar with when you say tick mark it off, if that's something that the state requires or no, because in Minnesota it does not. So that's why okay. My big picture answer to you, no, understanding that there might be some details in different states that would have different requirements, but it would still be handled in a similar way, is that what it sounds like is that there's been zero curriculum development at all. In general, Muslims and the engineers and doctors that start schools don't understand that curricula is a whole field and that it's not a book. So what is needed is curriculum development. And that would be what that would look like. And the very basic, we could do it very complicated, but a very basic, simple curriculum development would be, hello school, summer comes and now we take all of the books for that school. Let's say this one, grade 1 to grade 6. I'll just for ease, and you separate them by grade. You need to have, like what I did when I ran a school, the curriculum in the school, is I would set my writing, without the books, my writing goals and reading goals, mathematics goals, language goals. I only did English subjects, so those are the subjects I had. But if I had other subjects like social studies goals, I would set not just content learning, but skills learning for each grade. So now I know what my goal is for my students in this school. So I can do school assessments to decide, I can do random assessments, spot check throughout the year as the academic director and find out if the students are reaching my goals. Then after that, I take the books that the school has purchased, whatever they are, and I choose from there. I do the scope, not the scope of sequence, I used to write out this is what the teachers have to teach this year. As the curriculum person, this is now what the teachers are teaching, and this is what they're not teaching. And then those would be connected to the skills I'm trying to reach and the knowledge I'm trying to reach and the variety of authors I want them to read, etc. What isn't included in that material, then I would do add-ins either from the library, or I would bring in novels. Usually by grade 3, 4, you want to bring in some novels for them to read, at least 2 in the year. So then I'm choosing authors and choosing, obviously in an Islamic school, I'm choosing books about Muslims because I know that's not what they're reading in their books. And we need to have curriculum development. Like curriculum development is a school's development of what will be taught, how it will be taught, and to who it will be taught. And once that is in place, then you can trust, and there's someone walking around making sure, doing the follow-up with the teachers and responding to teachers' concerns and when they're falling behind, blah blah blah, that's happening. That is an essential part of schooling that for the most part is missing in Islamic schools, to my knowledge. I could be wrong. I mean, obviously I'm not in every school. And then as it goes on, it's just like, well, this is everything's been given to me. Well, I mean, that is typical. I mean, a teacher in general should be given what they need to teach that year. And then their job is to take those objectives that they need to reach, those things, and build how they're going to do it. Now, as far as like the books and this and that, I don't think it's not, here's a book, teach the book. Because if the teacher is given a book and told to teach the book, they haven't gotten any guidance at all for what the school's goals are. And so if the school hasn't set up goals, then every teacher is teaching what they teach, and you don't know if the 3rd grade is going to the 4th grade what they know. You can't say, because that teacher has emphasized what's important to her, what's easy for her or hard for her or whatever, with no fault to her because she had no guidance. And so I think that's a critical role in a school, a curriculum development. And it can happen in the summer. Like I know with resources issue, what you could do is just hire someone in the summer to do that work, write up those things, and then give that to the principal or whoever is going to be in charge of that in the year to do follow-up. That's a hard way to do it, but it's better than nothing. At least they're working on something. There's something to work on with those goals. It's especially important with communication. Like you talked about the state of education in the United States right now. It's so bad. Kids are not learning to read and write at all. And we won't teach our kids either if we don't have set goals for the reading and writing of how they will be at the end of the year. Every year, what does a 2nd grader look like in Cordoba? I mean, you should be able to, somebody should be able to answer that. At grade 2, students are able to write a paragraph, whatever. Like they're able to write 3. I mean, my goal would probably be they can write 3 sentences on their own that are linked together and communicate an idea, for example. That's a pretty basic goal for a 2nd grader. They should be able to do that. But everybody should know that, and so they should be practicing it in math. They should be practicing it in science. They should be practicing it in social studies. They should be practicing it in everywhere. They should be working on that. So that the math teachers are making sure that they're asking them to write word problems that are 3 sentences long, because by whatever time in the middle of the year, they know what a sentence is, but they need to practice again and again and again. End of grade 3 paragraph. I'm making these up, by the way. Don't Like right now I'm just making them up, right? But like end of grade 3 paragraph. So now everybody's working on paragraph writing and reading and this and that. That's one example. Yeah.
Just pray something.
I just wanted to add a little context to some of that. I know some of our teachers can probably explain it a little better, but I think there's a misunderstanding, misconception about how like Washington State or California State, works and things these things. We heard a lot from parents, we heard a lot from other people who aren't in this space
Yeah.
doing it, that there's one kind of curriculum, and it's kind of like indoctrination that this is what you're teaching and you check it off. It doesn't really work like that. They have a plethora of curriculum that they've approved, and we have our teachers and our team that go through those every year. They find what they feel is the best and most suited. And yes, they do take and choose like from them, but you're not always like it's not always necessary to recreate the wheel every time. Like for
No.
Certain lessons like science and those types of things. Like, and so I just wanted to add that that it is a their standard is really that there is no standard. They have like some check benchmarks that they kind of spread across the whole state, but then it's up to us to like figure out that what just you said, what's the second year look like at the end of the year versus the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So something like that gives us a lot of flexibility to inject what we want to do. And I think providing guidance, because sometimes we've had a lot of teachers, we all have different styles. Some need more guidance, need more like stuff to do, like the prep around it. Some are a little more creative. But something that it does work well, but I do, we do feel the need of like Muslim developing our own curriculums, kind of picking and choosing like what works and what doesn't work, and then tailoring that balance. Every community, even in Seattle, on the east side, different priorities, different things that they want to expect to see.
Yeah, 100%. So I just wanted to clarify what I'm talking about. There are two different words here I hear us all using, so I want to make sure that curriculum and curriculum materials. So I was talking about curriculum, and I feel like we're a little bit talking about curriculum materials. So those are quite different things. I don't know any curriculum materials that are in what you're talking about. I saw some in Australia for Islamic studies that were really good. The only time I've ever seen curriculum materials for Islamic studies that I approve of, ever, in English language. But yeah, so I mean, it's a challenge for sure, but I still would recommend like curriculum development. I'm sure that you're doing it, but like also sometimes it's important to communicate the development you're doing to the parents and to just to everyone. The more communication, the better.
Any final questions? I know you have one, yes.
Just a topic back to about my wife, she's a Catholic, so I really to her, and she wants to learn more about Islam. And as you mentioned, there are some mothers who have no idea how to, for example, teach the basics of Islam. And inshallah, we're about to this year.
Congratulations, alhamdulillah.
And so she's trying to get into an institute or somewhere where she can learn something, so she can be able to teach for the kids and the family. I have two siblings that she usually takes care of, like their homework and stuff, taking care of. So you mentioned that there was a certain class.
There are Rabata.org. It's we have lots of classes. I'm over 50 now, I think. Lots of choices, and she can take. We have. I mean, I usually recommend Foundations, Flounderings in Faith, really basic 101 Aqidah. Companions is the class I teach. It's a great gateway course. It gets people started in Sira, and yeah, I mean, especially for new learners, I think the Companions class. I'm doing Companions 2 right now, which is the Ansar mostly, and then it circles back in the fall. But she can also look at what her interests are. Like there's lots and lots and lots of choices. Yeah.
It's really helpful to have something like that at home. I asked a while back as well before I even got married that what are like the most important things as a
new parent or something else I have in mind. And he told me after that, alhamdulillah, my father.
Mashallah.
And I ask him lots of questions all the time. But since we're new here in the States, we've been here for like about 2 years. So everything is pretty new, like the Islamic aspect of it. Alhamdulillah, I got it with my dad. But it's just the modern aspect of it here that it can be a little bit difficult managing both of those at the same time. Especially, for example, my mother. She's a great here because of them.
Mashallah.
And so she has difficulties managing this new style of life with the kids when it comes to them. They've had a very, very big issue with the new screens and all this stuff. So it's really helpful to have something like that where someone can go.
How long's your wife been a convert for? Been Muslim for?
Over a year.
Okay. So I just want to say that one of the most important things you're going to do is to remember always that her culture is not your culture. And so really be ready for her to have particular needs around holidays and like just all sorts of things that you might not expect. And make sure that you're really open to having those conversations so that she doesn't end up in a place of frustration or even bitterness. And her family as well.
And there's a program tomorrow.
Yes, she should
at
be.
Baraka Beauty.
Yeah, that's right.
For convert women.
Is she signed up for that already?
No,
you
she was
should.
gonna come in here today,
But sign her up.
Tomorrow. Is it Hannah? Are you ready, Hannah?
no, Kaylee.
Oh, Kaylee. Okay, yes, I know her personally.
So make sure Kaylee's going to be there.
Yeah. So
Okay, so we want to give space to transition everything. I wanted to end on like, sorry.
Oh, and we should also come for Sunday for the training, convert training.
yes, you should. You definitely should.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
You had mentioned that part of Tarbiya is connection, not just belief.
Yeah.
And I was wondering about Muslim rites of passage. What about the blood for students? Because the first time I went to see, it was such a connection, and I came back with all this confidence in Islam. And I remember meeting a sister. She was a younger Muslim, not a sister. She was like 24, and she had left this very prestigious job from New York, worked at that making like 120K as a very young person. And here she was in Egypt in a cloud, studying and left her thing behind. And I asked her, like, what motivated you to leave that lifestyle and to turn it around? She said the first Umrah that she did, she felt so poor. She didn't know she didn't know her deen, she didn't know anything. And she was just surrounded by all these diverse Muslims, and she just not having to present myself on the camera, and that's what motivated. And I felt, the same sentiment. It's like, yes, you go to Muslim country, it's chaotic. It's not like the West. Time is very different. Paperwork, everything's very different. But you do leave with a richness because you could just, for once, relax your shoulders and just feel proud to be Muslim. I feel that even though the schools here, that Jewish people have like this right to passage to go to schools for. Alhamdulillah, my brother went to school. They had this field trip to Rome. What does that look like for our young people?
What an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I think that sounds like something you could just make up. I mean, the Jewish, they've totally made it up.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a great question. I like it. I feel like you could sit with some Native people and understand a little bit about what that has meant historically in their community and think about what you want to do and pretty much do anything you want. Go to Damascus. That's my advice.
Well, Sheikh Mohammed Mendez, who's also here this weekend and has some classes this weekend. Like tonight, there's a program in Renton.
Conversations.
Yeah. And he talks a lot about rites of passage, especially for young boys. And one of the things he says is that rites of passage for women is within childbirth. That's the ultimate rite of passage, right? For the women who have children. Because one of the things he says, I don't know. No, he's saying, no, right?
That makes me worried because that's so exclusionary for women who don't have children women.
No, but he's saying, what he's saying is, where is it for men? So right? And so he's saying that developing programs leadership programs, because the issue is within indigenous cultures, the rites of passage are all there still. Yeah. Even like indigenous cultures as Muslims, there's forms of rites of passage. The issue is the westernization aspect that takes away these rites of passage and where they're lacking, right, for especially young people. So it's how do we develop leadership programs for young people? That's what he's saying, is the leadership component for younger people especially is where you can find rites of passage. And that's one of the things we're all thinking about. Yes, you want to critique me? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I think that was kind of said.
Yeah, thank you.
So one thing I thought I've seen, so there's two parts to this. I think it could be a dangerous line of falling into what others are doing here, non-Islamic potentially. Anywhere, like people having kind of like having a Sweet 16 and going all out, right?
Well, I thought of something though. So can I jump in, or you want to finish first? Finish.
Well, no, I was just gonna say it was like the idea of how we have like at times of when Salah, like the 7-year-olds having their parties and like those things and like going on when boys and girls reach puberty. Like, I mean, I feel like those can be done anywhere, kind of just what you were saying, that we create them as we go along within our cultural.
Totally. Yeah. In Syria, so I thought of something. In Syria, two beautiful things that they used to do. One is every summer there would be Dawrat Quran, okay? And then the end of the Dawrat Quran, there was a party, and everyone, I mean, especially the ones who did a really good job, they wore crowns, and if they finished the Quran, white robe, we do this at RCC, white robe, a crown on the head, this whole idea of creating ritual around something. And so in this case, it's the Quran, learning the Quran. I'm imagining that we do that for Hajj too. So when somebody comes back from Hajj, we invite them to RCC, we put them on the stage, and we sing for them, and we talk to them, and we let them talk about their experience a little bit, and then we have food. And so, I mean, I think it's a really good question, and I think it's something that we think about a lot because we're always talking about culture, but it's a great thing for everyone to be thinking about. I haven't thought about it in this word of rites of passage before, frankly. So I have to do some thinking, but I like it. I love it.
Yeah. Well, and maybe there's a curriculum that's like leadership and rites of passage that can be developed, where you have many ideas for what rites of passage look like for different age groups. And I like the idea of Quran parties and these things. The Shaykh. Yeah. And I have one last one too, but go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, I asked too many. You go. No. Okay.
The only thing that I you mentioned earlier, and alhamdulillah here, we have a lot of amazing, talented Muslims, with amazing resources as well.
True.
The painful, sad reality is we haven't developed, which we said, a proper Islamic environment for our children, subhanAllah, where they're still being influenced by the society and the culture over here. And most of the family members who are well off, subhanAllah, most of the funds, subhanAllah, are not also being put into those areas that are supposed to, subhanAllah, develop and mold and develop curriculums, mold their children, make them upright. So challenges of underfunding institutions like Baraka and many other things, how do we overcome that, especially with so many Muslims, with all the funds under there?
And we're so generous. For us at Rabata, what we did is we went and got, I am a certified fundraising manager, certified by University of Indiana and the Lilly Philanthropy, whatever it's called, Society. Lilly School of Philanthropy. Yeah. And so is Afsha, our development director. So that education taught us a lot. And it taught us something that is inherent Islamic thinking, but it's shows in the research. And I want to just say we taught us a lot. It's a whole certificate, but two things I want to say. One is I flip that question all the time. I don't think we should be our community is absolutely research-based, the most generous community in the United States. And that's why there's interest in us, and why the Lilly School of Philanthropy is interested in Muslims studying philanthropy at University of Indiana. We are extremely generous. So we know that's not an issue. And however, as organizations, we feel entitled to Muslim money. And that's a bad attitude. That's not the right attitude. We have to know and understand that one part of philanthropy, and there's like, let's talk about, what's your name, sister? Ikran.
Yeah.
So let's say Ikran is a multi-millionaire, okay? As a multi-millionaire, she still has to choose, inshallah, Allah Kareem. And so she still has to choose where she's going to put that money. She can't put it everywhere, because if she does, she's not going to be able to push forward whatever Allah has put in Ikran's heart that is important. And so one of the things you learn in this very secular certificate that I got is that people who are not interested in the work you're doing should not be part of your fundraising work, because you're not giving them value. Now, in an Islamic lens, how do we look at that? Because, well, they should be interested because it's Muslim. Whoa, hold your horses for a minute. I personally don't give a dime to masajid that have that have spaces for women I disapprove of. That's the end of that. And I mean, I'm not a multimillionaire, so nobody cares or knows, but it's still part of my field of where I want to give my money. So Quran, in my example, where she's a multi-millionaire, if I'm coming to Quran, I want to know about you. Oh, Quran, are you interested in university education? I'm just gonna, for the sake of now, you are, okay? So you are. So now I need to share with her and find out, is this something that will bring value to you? Like, you're going to feel like you're fulfilling what Allah is calling to you to build by donating to Ribat University, okay? Or K-12. Let's say K-12 is what's really important to you. So we have to learn how to do development work, how to interact with donors. I'm literally traveling. This is a Seattle stop. I'm not doing actual fundraising here, but literally this is a stop in between. I was 10 days. I went to Dallas, Houston, Austin, Charlotte, Raleigh, Orlando, and Tampa in 10 days doing development work. And literally, like, you can't go to people and make them feel like you have a right to their money, because we don't. And they have to feel like if they give, for me, again, not a multimillionaire, at my little $100 that I give some in different places, which I know is very valuable to different organizations, especially when you do crowdfunding. That's a great thing. But I want to know that that money is not going to be lost or wasted with people who don't know how to run an organization. 80% of our organizations are not run efficiently. Is there an amount? That's a made-up statistic. Are people watching the money, knowing exactly where every penny goes, and are they very transparent about it? I mean, people who are very frugal with their money and don't. I met a woman in Qatar, mashallah alayha. She raised $12 million for Palestine last year. Her name is Ustaza Dalia. You can see her on Instagram, Dalia Ayoub. And that's her raising money. But her money, she denies herself stuff because she's like, this or give money to Palestine. So if you're talking to people who are denying themselves things or choosing to give to you instead of do something for themselves, it's their right to do something for themselves. The only thing that's not their is zakat. Everything else is their right, and so I really think we need a revolution in fundraising management in our communities, and we need to professionalize it and deepen it in Islamic thinking for sure. But I think if we do understand it, we're going to feel better about the money flow, and we'll do better. I just want to say about Rabata, alhamdulillah, like, we are sustainable. We have excellent donors. I'm very proud of our donors. So I just don't want to be put in that place of the organizations that don't have enough money. Like, yes, I'm on a fundraising to do a new project. I'm not saying we're rich, so, but alhamdulillah, like, we're doing okay. And 98% funded by women. Yeah, which is why I'm doing outreach to men, because I'm like, hi guys, we're taking care of all this stuff. And lots of times that's because men don't know about our programming. Again, I don't feel like I have a right to anybody's money, but I want them to know so they can be fulfilled by giving us their money too. So Allah. So yeah, like, let's get positive about this and understand, not have scarcity mindset. There's plenty of money in the community. it can come to us when we present what we're doing. And really, I loved hearing about, if I was a Quran with the multi-million-dollar stuff and I heard about the Tufiyah here, I would be immediately interested in donating that. So you need to talk on that, seeing that you're different than elsewhere. So, those are things to think about. How are we approaching people? Get certified. Go to University of, it's an online program. Get certified. There used to be a special deal with the Muslim Philanthropy Organization, but they closed, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I think we're gonna wrap. I wanted to ask one last question. We don't have time? No? Okay. Quickly. Sorry. Thank you for your generosity.
I'm fine.
Thank you for being here.
This is fun.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, we have Jummah coming up, but I wanted to end on like a really hopeful, inshallah, note, because I had my mother, Mary Cron, may Allah have mercy on her. She passed 10 years ago, and she was a master teacher, and she was a daycare teacher, and she had the babies, and so they called her the baby whisperer, right?
MashaAllah.
And so when the week she was passing, I had this really intense dream about her, and we were like in Mecca, and I saw she wasn't a Muslim, but we were in Mecca, and I was chasing her in the dream, and I was chasing her, and she was running. I was, where are you going, Mom? Where are you going? And she came to this door, and I was realizing that she was going to pass in the dream, right? She went through the door, and it closed on my face, and it said, daycare.
Ya Allah.
And so, to me, what this is a reflection of is that was her door to Jannah, inshallah.
Ya Rab. Ameen. Ameen.
And so, to me, that's how I think about this work, is that education and being an educator is a door to Jannah. And so we thank you, and may Allah accept from you all of your work, and may that be one of your many paths, inshallah. But I don't know if you have reflections on this idea.
I think that's beautiful. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Allah, Habibi Arab. Yeah, taking care of all those children. It circles back to how we started, that the roots of our community are in the little ones, and anything that we can do to start filling them with the light of this faith is going to be good for us and good for them and good for every other project that we're doing. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Beautiful story, mashallah.